When wildfire devastates a forest habitat, teams of talented people work together to accomplish an incredible bear cub rescue.
Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Wild Kingdom is back. Hi, I'm Peter Gros, and these are real conservation success stories from across the USA. I can't wait to share these all-new inspiring tales of protecting the wild. Today is a big day. We're at PAWS Wildlife Center in Linwood, Washington, surrounded by National Forest of the Pacific Northwest. In just a few hours, these little bears, critically burned by fire and restored back to health, will be set free. They have a second chance at life thanks to the people with a shared passion for protecting the wild. Wild Kingdom has studied the plight of North American bears for decades. Marlon Perkins knew they were among the most susceptible to the dangers of wildfire. He believed the long-term impact of human interaction and poor fire management could endanger bears and their habitat.
While lightning starts many fires every year, the majority of forest fires are man-made and preventable.
He wasn't alone in that idea. Only you can prevent wildfire. We've all heard this message from our favorite wildlife ambassador, Smokey Bear. It's no wonder a black bear represents this important message. Our national forests are home to thousands of them.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
It's a catchy slogan, but fires are not always caused by humans, and we can't stop them from happening every time. Wildfires are inevitable and start for any number of reasons. Fires clear thick underbrush, allowing sunlight to reach the forest floor and nourish the soil. As new growth of grass and shrubs return, it provides food and shelter and habitat. Despite these benefits, fire is still a deadly force to be reckoned with and impacts all humans and animals alike. David and Karen Case know this all too well. As forest residents themselves, they are on high alert for changing conditions with a watchful eye on local wildlife. Now, this was obviously prime bear habitat. You had cameras out around your property?
Yes.
How close to your house would they come?
Right in the backyard, 20 feet.
Their wildlife cameras have been recording this family of bears since they emerged from their den in the spring. And then you had the call. There's smoke behind your house, right?
There was already fire started. It was hot. It's been dry for several years. It couldn't withstand it. That's why so much of the fire was so extreme.
It was uncertain how the fire started, but the effects were rapid and devastating. Before long, David and Karen saw something on their security camera that left them heartbroken.
Karen actually spotted one bear first that was walking in the yard on its knees, actually. It couldn't walk.
They lost their mother. Their mother died in the fires, and there was no food for them. They came to our bird feeders, and they were crawling under our bird feeders, licking the ground for seed. That's all they had to eat.
The 25-mile fire on Lake Chelan had orphaned these young bear cubs, leaving them badly burned with nowhere to go.
We immediately called wildlife folks, and they sent up a representative and put a trap out and took them over to PAWS.
PAWS is a nonprofit animal welfare organization. We have a shelter for cats and dogs, and then we have an education department, and then we have a wildlife hospital. And they're all separate entities with a lot of interaction. So we take everything from hummingbirds to eagles, bears, raccoons.
Harbor seals, hawks, owls, any type of mammal or bird that you can think of in the Pacific Northwest. So we get a huge variety, well over 150 species in any given year.
Anything that needs a place to heal and recover. That's our job here, is to give these animals a second chance and get them out into the wild.
The team at PAWS are no strangers to treating injured and orphaned bears, but the fire presented them with a challenge they had never faced.
We haven't had animals brought in from wildfires. It was really pretty heartbreaking to see these cubs come in with such significant injuries.
And they looked at these bears and assessed immediately that they were in really bad trouble.
The bears were suffering from smoke inhalation and third-degree burns, most severely to the very thing that gives them mobility, their paws.
They had really substantial burns on all four of their feet, particularly the hind feet, presumably because they were able to stand up and lift their front paws off of the ground. And they required really aggressive, pretty regular wound management for the first couple of weeks that they were in care. This is really in the height of it when it was at its worst.
Nikki Rosenhagen is a wildlife veterinarian here at PAWS and immediately began to assess the situation.
So you can see here, this is one of the back feet. Really severe, second, third degree burns, irritated, ulcerated, and so we had to do a lot of bandage changes, a lot of topical application of medications in order to make sure that the tissue was protected and then that it would heal.
Soon began the long and difficult process treating their injuries before it was too late. But these are wild animals. If the team hopes to release them back to the forest, they cannot get used to human interaction. Bears and people are most safe when they stay away from each other. So these doctors have the added task of ensuring the patients never even know that they exist.
The very first thing that we do, they essentially get set up in an enclosure outside, away from people, and that way we can evaluate them. They are put under anesthesia so that we can do a full veterinary exam, take x-rays, get blood, things like that.
We really try hard to keep it hands-off. The only contact they have with us is negative reinforcement, and while we're not intentionally trying to be mean, they certainly don't view it as a good thing.
Even though they are healing these animals, the bears must always think of humans as danger to ensure they keep a safe distance when they return home. For caring doctors, that's not always easy. There has to be some attachment to see a bear that was that severely injured.
We do our very best to maintain a distance so that they maintain their wild nature. It's a part of this job. However, when you see an animal that comes in with such a significant injury, they're stressed, they're scared to be here. It's hard to not develop an attachment to these animals, especially when they go through something as heartbreaking as this.
When we come back, I'm joined by guest host Dr. Rae Wynn Grant to assist in the release and explore nearby habitat. And she shares a few tips for doing our part in protecting the wild. Dr. Rae Wynn Grant, wildlife ecologist and certified bear expert, studies homes and habitat of wild animals. We're working together this week on the final stages of the big release, starting with our tour of this nearby forest habitat to talk about coexistence with our wild neighbors. We are, an hour east of the metropolis of Seattle?
Not even an hour, I think.
Yeah,
so close.
And look where we're standing. It is absolutely beautiful here.
You know, believe it or not, this is excellent bear habitat. One of the things I love about black bears is that they're habitat generalists, which means we find them across this continent, in deserts, on mountains, in temperate rainforests. I mean, they can be absolutely anywhere. This is a very wild place, especially for being outside of a city. They're living here and they're thriving here, not too far away from where humans are also living and thriving.
Dr. Rae specializes in the homes that wild animals make and the impact they leave on the forest that they live in.
I have been studying bears for over a decade, mostly in the western U.S., where we are right now. Black bears play a huge role in this ecosystem. In fact, in most forests, black bears are some of the most important seed dispersers. So they are carnivores, but they also eat nuts and berries and seeds all day long. And then they walk around this magnificent space and poop it out. And that might sound a little bit gross to our audiences, but it is so important for the forest. It allows the seeds of a tree to get from point A to point B and regenerate all year round. And it goes on for generations and generations and keeps this space healthy and thriving.
As a record number of people head into the wilderness for recreation, the chances of a wildlife encounter significantly increase. And that can spell trouble for even the friendliest neighborhood bear. So they are this giant animal with a nose that can smell food for over a mile away and a stomach that is never satisfied. They're always hungry. It's harsh to say, but it's truthful. If you leave food out when you're camping and bears come and eat it, as you know, they start to associate food with people. You may have written a death sentence to a bear.
It's true. Unfortunately, a lot of places have very, very strict laws which are put in place to keep people safe. And that often means that if a bear is found in a human area or getting into a garbage can 2 or more times, that bear has to be euthanized. No one wants to do it because these animals are just doing what is instinctive to them. But it does mean that they could be dangerous. So lock up your garbage, be responsible with your food waste. That will keep bears safe and people safe at the same time.
We certainly want our bear population to thrive, but there's only so much PAWS or Fish and Wildlife can do to protect them. The rest is up to us, and believe it or not, we have more power to help than you might think.
Have a good day.
Black bears have no natural predators or no enemies in their ecosystem. So they're not used to anything kind of yelling or being a little aggressive with it.
Right.
So even if you yell something like, "Go away, bear, back up, bear," that frightens them a little bit to the point that they'll usually retreat.
All right, back up, back up. Get back there.
Make sure that you don't make eye contact. You see how we're looking at each other right now?
Yes.
Don't do that with a bear or any predator. Try to look above their head or maybe down at their feet. Making eye contact signals that you might be prey. The great thing about black bears is they are not very aggressive. They really don't like to be around humans for the most part, and so usually if people see a black bear and the black bear sees the person, they both go in the other direction and everything's fine.
Sure.
People should never feel afraid to recreate in nature or get out on the trail. There are so many easy ways to stay safe.
Staying safe means protecting the wild, and for some, that's a full-time job. Rich Beausoleil and Lindsay Wellfelt at Washington Fish and Wildlife are the boots on the ground in this effort, and their quick actions saved our little bear cubs while the fires were still raging.
We were getting calls about these cubs for a couple of days, and we were having a really hard time finding them. That's something that, we take to heart and really want to respond to.
Despite the best technology at their disposal, the Washington Fish and Wildlife team struggled to locate the injured bears. So man's best friend stepped in to get the job done.
The Karelian bear dog. It's a great partnership.
Karelian bear dogs hail from the Karelian region of Finland. These friendly dogs were trained specifically to hunt large game such as moose, cougars, and of course, bears.
They can help us find injured and orphaned wildlife. We could have a whole team of folks out there for hours and hours looking for those cubs. These guys can get the job done in 20 minutes.
The natural intelligence of these dogs plays an important role in working with large carnivores.
They have enough of a brain to know they're not going to win a fight. So if the bear stops and challenges them, they stop and then they start running circles around it, getting it up, moving it, pushing it.
Saving wild animals and protecting the humans helping them is a role these dogs play to perfection, much more than your average house pet. The final health check of these little bear cubs is close to wrapping up, and they seem to be in tip-top shape.
Thankfully, their wounds healed beautifully, and then they really just needed to rest this winter, and so we allowed them to hibernate through the nice cold winter, and they just bedded down.
By the time we anesthetized them for their last assessment before they went in for hibernation, this is what the feet looked like. So this is that same cub.
The hair growth that's come back.
Yeah, and in fact, there was some an extra hair growth. This was about 3 months. Things are looking even better.
How exciting for all of you, though, after all this extensive treatment, to know that within the next few days, they're going back to the wild.
Going home, yeah.
Going home.
We're very happy.
When we come back, we make the drive up the mountain to take these bear cubs back home. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, Protecting the Wild. The PAWS medical staff has determined these bear cubs burned in the wildfire and rehabilitated by their team are fully recovered and ready for release. Well, this is the big day. For the last year plus, they've been treating wounds, they've been feeding, they've been keeping completely out of contact. The only time they're near people is when the bears are asleep. So they're still very much wild bears. They're fat, they've hibernated, they're healthy, their wounds are healed, and they are ready to be released back to the wild. We are so excited, and we're going to get to be here and see them run free once again where they belong in the forest.
It's amazing to see these bears right now. They are so, of course we have to keep our voices down because we don't want to give them any kind of stress. But these bears have these covers over their faces, and that might look a little bit strange, but it's mostly just to shield their eyes from any kind of light, just to reduce stress in every kind of way.
Their eyes tend to get dilated. It's good to keep them covered, keep them calm.
Just to keep them calm, exactly.
Yeah. It's time for Washington Fish and Wildlife to take over once again. So Rich and Lindsay have arrived with a golden carriage that will carry our little friends back home.
This is what we call a barrel trap or sometimes a culvert trap, and it's a great way to transport these bears. It's safe, it's comfortable for them. Bears are very used to these kind of close quarters, so even when they hibernate in the wintertime, they'll make very, very small dens, kind of bear-sized dens. They will be sedated during the ride so that they don't experience stress during that journey, and then by the time the medicine wears off, it'll be ready for them to go find their new territory.
Taking some final measurements will help the team better track their overall health and the progress of their growth over time. They measure height, weight, paw size, and of course, those teeth.
So is he an omnivore or is he a carnivore?
You know, carnivore is a scientific classification on the taxonomic tree, and so they are classified as carnivores, but a diet is based on where they live and what they have access to and their resources. But one of the classifications for carnivore is the ability to eat meat, and that means you have to have extremely sharp teeth and sharp claws. We can see that even a very young bear like this has these sharp canine teeth right here that can just rip through meat. And of course, these iconic claws that are able to not just scale trees, but again, rip through any kind of animal tissue. So it's not always that a carnivore eats meat for its diet all the time, but that it has the ability to if it needs to.
This is a great way to age bears. See, that's right at 2. So 2.1, you see bears that are roughly 1.5 years old. And then if it goes to 2.3, they're 2.5. It goes up to 2.7, they're 3.5. And then they start getting yellow, and now you've got an adult.
Gritty, yeah.
The last step is to give each cub an ear tag to help identify them in the future and a backup tattoo on their gums.
Slower is great.
Okay, Peter gets to do the 0. You want to do it? Okay.
Let me get out of your way here. Go. Straight up and down. There you go. Okay.
There you go, pal.
780.
I'll be traveling with you in the forest for the rest of your life.
Hopefully, that's as close as I'll get to those teeth. Last but not least, each bear gets fitted with a lightweight GPS radio collar. These collars are designed to fall off after a few years and allow Fish and Wildlife to collect important data about the bear's habits and habitat. It may seem bulky, but they're very light and won't bother the bears as they get back to their regular routine.
This is the GPS radio collar that we're going to use on these bears. This is going to send us 4 locations a day right to our email, which is really cool.
So we know where it's feeding, we know where it dens up, we know its entire location throughout its entire
And that's a great point, because seasonal home range use will be very different. They'll use grasses in the spring, then move on to flowers like dandelions and that kind of stuff, and bugs. And then they're getting into their summer ranges, which is all berries, and then fall is completely different. They're taking everything they can get.
So you can plot it on a map and know exactly where the bear is, but also know where it's been and where it might be going and what habitats are most important to it, and then we can protect those habitats that are most important.
And that important habitat has also had plenty of time to heal. What once was acres of burned and blackened trees is now ripe, green, and ready for these furry tenants to move back in. So it's time to get them loaded up to gather their strength over the 4-hour drive to their home range, up the winding mountain roads of the North Cascades. To make sure everything goes well, Karelian bear dogs once again play an important role.
When the bears are brought out, they're going to open the cage doors. People are going to be hollering and the dogs are going to be barking, and even though it's stressful to the bears, it is in their best interest.
These dogs are super excited because they know that we're about to do a release and it's time for them to do their job. They're going to frighten the bear without touching the bear, without hurting the bear, stress it out just a tiny bit so that it associates coming into a human area with being chased by these dogs.
The idea is that when these bears take off into the woods, their last idea is that I don't want anything to do with people.
Typically, they just bolt right off, can't wait to get away from us. So that's exactly what we need.
It's aversive conditioning that is totally safe, absolutely humane, and a great use of all of these animals.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a dog team on both sides of the trap, and we're going to open the door from above, and we'll see what the bears do. No guarantees. This is what it's all about. It's coming to an end.
Well, let's not make them wait another minute.
Sounds good, Peter.
And now the moment we've all been waiting for. It's been a long journey for these little cubs, and it's wonderful to know they'll be out there thriving together, sharing this beautiful world with us. Hopefully, we'll all continue to play our part in protecting the wild. Marlon Perkins hoped that too, and he said it best many years ago.
The black bear, because of its wide distribution, has the most trouble of all. If we use common sense by taking extra care with campfires and matches, we can reasonably expect the black bear to remain a viable part of the wild kingdom.
Okay. Here they come, one at a time. Here they go. Here they go. Here they go.
And just like that, these bears are home free, all thanks to that first phone call.
We absolutely would not have been able to help these guys without Dave and Karen.
Well, Dave and Karen, what did you think?
Well, it made me very grateful for all the people that were involved in bringing these bears to this point, and very sad because I'll never see them again.
Yeah, well,
But that's the idea.
It is the idea. We went from tragedy to what I hope is triumph right now, and just knowing their course in these hillsides for me that's what makes it all worth it.
So they went from only being able to crawl to leaping into the woods at about, what, 35 miles an hour?
Yeah.
What a
That's
success.
a success, you bet, Peter.
It is so rewarding to see these animals return to the wild. While it's always our goal to coexist without interference, the relationship between humans and animals is important. Just like a well-managed fire, we play a role in protecting the homes and habitats of our neighboring wildlife. Seeing the amazing work of men and women like these reminds me that there's certainly hope and a bright future for our wild kingdom.
In honor of the black bear cubs, Mutual of Omaha is partnering with the Arbor Day Foundation to plant 5,000 trees in the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest.